Hola, hola. This is the first of a few videos for El Subjuntivo. Today we're going to be discussing how to form the subjunctive, cómo formar el subjuntivo, what you're going to do with the verbs, how you're going to conjugate, okay? The remaining parts of the additional videos and the remaining parts of this slide presentation are how you would use them in context, okay? So we'll start here with cómo formar el subjuntivo. So, in order to create the verb in the subjunctive, we are going to first go to the yo form in the present tense. Second step is to drop the O. And the third step then is to add opposite endings. This pattern of yo drop swap should sound very familiar. The only difference here is that you are no longer making a command, but you are doing the exact same pattern, or you are creating the exact same pattern with the verb, with each and every verb. This time, because it's not a command and will be used in a sentence with a subject, with a person, and multiple people, multiple different people, you're going to use the endings that are provided for you here. AR endings, remember they're opposite, so they end in E or ES, EMOS, E with an accent, IS, and EN. For ERIR verbs, we've got the opposite A, AS, AMOS, AIS, and AN. Yes, this should make you think of commands. There was a reason, there's a method to the madness, right? There is a reason why we learned how to do commands first so that you could get in the habit of yo drop and swapping. Of course, like with anything in Spanish, there has to be some sort of irregularity, right? Cargar-Zar rules are going to apply here, so the same spelling changes you had with commands are going to apply here in all forms, Cargar and Zar. You will also have irregularity with yo forms that are already irregular. So some of those categories like the GER, GIR, CER, CIR, the same exact irregularities are going to appear here in the subjunctive as well. Some examples here of verbs that follow those irregular yo forms. Give you about a minute or so to try out these 5 verbs in their new subjuntivo, their new subjunctive form. Remember to yo drop swap. Double check for any irregularities. Pause the video here and then replay when you are ready to check. Número 1, decir. Diga. The yo form of decir is digo. Drop the O and swap the ending. Buscar. Just by looking at its infinitive, is a car verb. We've got to change our spelling. Busquen. Nosotros traer. Traer is a yo-go. The yo form traigo. Drop the O and swap the ending. We get traigamos. Llegar. Another gar. We need to change our spelling. Llegue. Llegue with an emphasis here and not here. It's not the preterite. Conducir, an irregular CIR in the yo form conduzco, ZCO. So we drop and swap, conduzcan. Proteger, another irregular. Skipped it before, I apologize. Proteger, GER. Therefore, in the yo form will be protejo. Drop the O and swap the ending. Tu protejas, you protect. Stem changing verbs. In the present tense, stem changing verbs that end in AR and ER switch from 1 to 2 letters inside the boot. Okay, so the normal stem change is going to occur. We're looking at the verb poder here. P-O-D-E-R. It means to be able to. I am able to, or I can. Yo pueda in the subjunctive. Yo puedo, drop the O, swap the ending. Pueda. Stem change here because, again, poder, P-O-D-E-R, is the infinitive. So your AR and ER stem changers are going to have the regular stem changing occur just like in the present tense inside the boot, or in the yo, tú, él, a usted, and ustedes forms. There will be no stem change here in the nosotros or vosotros for AR, ER stem changers. Some examples of verbs that fit into that category are these. Stem change only inside the boot. In contrast, we have stem changing verbs that end in IR. Here you're going to have the same repeated stem changes that you have in the present tense inside the boot, but what happens outside the boot is going to be different. Outside of the boot, you're only going to get a one-letter shift, okay, from O to U or from E to I. These are the same irregular patterns we looked at with nosotros commands, so this should look somewhat familiar, but it's always good to review. Here we're going to use the verb dormir to illustrate our point. The verb dormir, D-O-R-M-I-R, is an IR stem changer. Inside the boot, we are going to apply that two-letter change, D-O to D-U-E, inside the boot. Outside the boot, as we've seen before, just one letter, durmamos, durmais. Some verbs that work similarly to dormir, divertirse, pedir, servir, and morir. Take a few moments to conjugate these 8 verbs to practice those irregularities. Pause the video while you work. Double check your answers when you're ready. So many of these verbs are somewhat tricky, right? I'm giving you the tough stuff to work through today because you're going to want to make sure that you have all those irregularities practiced, perfected. Dormir, sleep, duermas, durmais. So careful with 1 and 2. You've got a double letter shift and just a single letter here. To have fun is not tener divertido. That never existed. That's fake. Divertirse is how we say to have fun. It's a reflexive verb. Me divierta, it's a stem changer here from E to IE in the yo form. Nosotros form will change only one letter. Nos divirtamos. So be careful with especially examples like número cuatro. Not only do you have the swapped ending, but you also have a stem change, a spelling change in the middle. To ask for is the verb pedir, P-E-D-I-R. It's a stem changer. Pidan, pidamos. Morir, muera, murrais. Double letter inside the boot, single letter outside the boot. Our next category of verbs are the irregulars. Okay, when we did commands, these were many of the 5 irregulars. We're going to add a verb today, the verb haber, the verb dar, yo, de, accent, tú, des, él, usted, de, accent again, demos, des, and den, yo, tú, él, nosotros, vosotros, ellos. Estar should look familiar. Accent marks are going to go everywhere in estar, este, estés, esté, except for in estemos here, no accent mark. Estéis en estén. Dar means to give. Estar, to be. Locations and feeling, to be. The verb ir, to go. Haber, another form of to be. You're going to see these together, not because they have similar meaning, but simply because they have similar conjugation. If you can conjugate ir, then you can conjugate haber. Haya, vaya, vayas, hayas, vaya, haya. You see the pattern here. Simply the duplication without the V. Instead, we have an H. Accents in the vosotros form. Ir, to go. Haber, another form of to be. Saber is to know information. These irregulars, this pattern should look pretty familiar to you since you used it already with commands. Sepa. Ser, the other form of to be. This regarding more permanent descriptions of people, physical traits, setting up a scene, things like that. Sea, seas, seamos, and sean. There's a little song, rhyme, riddle, however you want to see it, to help you remember those irregulars. Allá vaya se pasea de este cha-cha-cha. Allá vaya se pasea de este cha-cha-cha. You like the cha-cha-cha? Use it. Hate the cha-cha-cha? Perfectly fine with me. Okay? Quick review. This is a completely new verb tense. Okay? We are going to go back to the very beginning. Completely new tense that we are learning here. Okay? We're going to go into the specifics of it as we move through it. But to start, I want to start with what we know. And what we know is already how to form the subjunctive. Okay? Yo, drop, swap is our pattern. Make sure you swap to the opposite endings. We've got some irregulars. Kargazars will always have their Kargazar spelling change in all forms. Irregular yo verbs will also have here because yo is the first step in every conjugation. Stem changers, AR and ER, are going to have changes inside the boot, but not outside the boot. No stem change outside for A and ER. In contrast, we have our IR stem changers that will change in and outside the boot. Inside the boot, normal present tense changing. Outside the boot, just a one-letter change. You've got your categories here of irregulars. Make sure that you memorize those. And that's how we form the subjunctive. Okay, we're simply working only with the verbs in isolation at this point. We will add context in our next lesson. Gracias.